we don't feel good. So many of us don't feel good. If you're not suffering with a diet-related disease, you probably know somebody that is. I wrote this book because I was the doctor who became the patient. I started suffering myself with the symptoms of irritable bowel syndrome. I tried all the things that I had told patients to do over the years. Well, maybe cut out dairy, try going gluten-free, do the low FODMAP diet. And like my patients had told me, none of that worked very well for me either. I wound up being able to take a trip to Italy with my family. And within 24 hours of being in Italy, I felt amazing. And I thought, okay, what's going on here? What's different about the food in Italy compared with the US? So when I came back to the US, I started looking into just the published research on what's going on with the food additives, with our microbiome. And it turns out over the last decade or so, a ton of research has been published in this space. And that data said these emulsifiers, thickeners, other additives are changing our microbiome, probably for the worse. And when we cut them out, we wind up with a lot less inflammatory microbiome, with a lot fewer disease states. And I said, okay, I've got to change this in myself. And it works. It worked for me. It worked for my patients. And so then I was like, well, I got to tell more people. And I wrote the book. We need to differentiate the processed from the ultra-processed. Ultra-processing is when we've taken a processed food and really processed the heck out of it. So using super high temperatures, putting in all kinds of substances that our bodies don't recognize as food, that our microbiomes do, adding a lot of sugar, adding a lot more salt. Those are all the characteristics of ultra-processing. You can usually tell an ultra-processed food because when you turn around the back of the package and look at the ingredients, you're gonna see things, and if you close your eyes and you try to picture what does that look like in nature, you're gonna have no clue. And so that would be the definition of an ultra-processed food. And they're everywhere. They make up 60% right now, almost 60% of the standard US diet, and some say even higher in the average diet for our kids. And in other countries, it's not nearly that high. The percentage of ultra-processed food that populations are eating is much less than what we're doing in the US. And if you look, their disease states are much less too. Their diet-related disease states are much less too. So their rates of diabetes and metabolic disorders and inflammatory bowel disease and irritable bowel disease are actually much less. Is there a one-for-one correlation with eating ultra-processed food? No one has proven that yet, but I believe those things to be definitely correlated. So I think we all know when we go get fast food or we reach for a candy bar, we're eating something that isn't healthy for us. And I'm not actually telling people not to do that. Have your treat when you want your treat, right? Let's not be purists about this whole thing. Let's be fun and joyful about food. But when we're trying to do the right thing and we're trying to be healthy and we want to avoid these things, it's very important to check for ingredients like food gums, maltodextrin, carrageenan, and other substances that are used as thickening agents and emulsifiers that I list in my book, because a lot of these substances have been associated with conditions like diabetes, have been associated with a lot of weight gain, have been associated with irritable bowel syndrome. 25% of adults in the United States are struggling with their blood sugar. That number has quadrupled over the last several decades. And it's reaching crisis proportions at this point. So we need a mindset shift. We need to think about, how do we learn how to cook again? How do we learn how to cook efficiently, right? Because we can't spend all day in the kitchen, not most of us anyway. So how do we learn how to do things quickly, efficiently, inexpensively as possible, and still make it healthy and whole foods based? And that's going to take efforts from everywhere. There are programs in schools now teaching kids about growing food, about what you do with the food that you grow. And for those of us who are older, who don't have the option of having these programs in schools, We can turn to older folks, turn to our grandmothers or someone's grandmother. I have asked so many people over the years, can you show me how to do that? Can you show me how you're making that? And that's helped me so much, because if you can learn at the elbow of someone who knows what they're doing, that is absolutely invaluable. If we can start eating more whole foods based and get this ultra processed stuff out of our diet, we're going to feel a lot better. But here's what not to do. Do not freak out. Do not panic, right? This is about recapturing the joy of food. So we want this to be a joyful experience. If we do that and we approach this with just positive energy and not putting too much on ourselves, we're all so stressed out and overburdened and so busy. So let's not give ourselves something else to worry about. Let's just be conscious and be aware of what this stuff is doing, and know that we can feel better. I think we'll be a lot better off.